No one wakes her. Alpha King Everett Kane's voice cut through the royal hall, and every wolf in the room went still. Claire Whitmore had no idea he was standing 10 feet away. She was asleep on his throne. Not beside it. Not on the steps. On the black-silver seat no one touched without permission. Her cheek rested against one carved arm. Her brown hair had fallen loose across her face, and a stack of sealed council files lay scattered near her boots. 5 minutes earlier, she had entered the empty hall with shaking hands and a pounding headache, determined to finish one simple delivery before midnight. Then the room had tilted. She had reached for the nearest solid object, sat down, and lost the fight to stay awake. Now 12 pack leaders watched from the doorway, as if they had discovered a crime scene. Counselor Nolan Pierce recovered first. "Your Majesty, the law is clear." Everett did not look at him. His gray eyes remained fixed on the young Omega beneath the royal crest. "I know the law." "Then she should be removed." Pierce lowered his voice. Immediately. Everett's wolf had been restless for months, pacing beneath his skin through sleepless nights, border disputes, and endless demands that he choose a politically suitable Luna. But the moment he saw Claire curled against the throne, the animal became silent. Not controlled. Silent. As if it had finally found something it had been searching for. Everett moved closer. Several alphas tensed when he climbed the steps. Claire's scent was faint beneath bitter herbs and cheap drugstore perfume, yet something warmer slipped through when she exhaled. Cedar after rain. Fresh bread in a cold kitchen. Home. The word struck him so hard he stopped. Claire stirred, and a few pack leaders stepped back. Her fingers tightened against the throne, revealing a pale mark around her wrist. It flashed once beneath the chandelier light. Everett's heart gave one heavy beat. The protective wards carved into the throne answered with a low silver glow. Graham Vale, his beta, stared at the stone floor. "That isn't possible." Pierce's face lost its color. "The wards only respond to royal blood. Or a bonded equal," Graham said quietly. The entire hall went silent again. Claire opened her eyes halfway, unfocused and confused. She looked up at Everett without recognizing him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I just needed to sit down for a second." Someone near the back laughed under his breath. An Omega on the king's throne. She must be either stupid or desperate. Everett turned his head. He did not raise his voice. "Say it again." No one did. Claire tried to stand, but dizziness pushed her back against the seat. Fear finally entered her green eyes as she noticed the crown insignias, the gathered leaders, and the man towering before her. "Oh God," she breathed. "This is your throne." "Yes." "Am I under arrest?" Everett should have ordered the guards forward. He should have defended the symbol holding 12 packs together. Instead, he removed his coat and placed it over her shoulders without touching her skin. The silver wards brightened beneath them. "No," he said. "You're going to sleep." Pierce stepped forward. "Your Majesty." Everett looked at him, and the counselor stopped. "Move tonight's meeting." For an unidentified Omega? Everett glanced back at Claire. Her eyes had already closed again, as though some part of her trusted him before she had any reason to. For the woman the throne just recognized. Beneath the coat, the mark on Claire's wrist began to glow once more, and this time, the same symbol appeared over Everett's heart. Claire woke beneath a heavy wool blanket with sunlight cutting across a room she had never seen before. For one confused second, she thought she was back in her small apartment above the archives. Then she noticed the carved wolf heads on the bedposts, the black stone walls, and the royal crest above the fireplace. Her stomach dropped. She sat up too fast. The room spun. "Easy." The voice came from near the window. Everett Kane stood with one hand in his pocket, still dressed in the dark shirt and trousers he had worn the night before. He looked as if he had not slept at all. Claire pulled the blanket closer. "Where am I?" "A guest room in the East Wing." "Why am I in the East Wing?" "Because the council wanted you placed in a holding chamber." His expression did not change. I disagreed. Memory returned in pieces. The empty hall. The cold throne beneath her. 12 pack leaders staring as though she had set fire to the building. Everett placing his coat around her shoulders. Claire closed her eyes. "I sat on your throne. You slept on it. That is not better." Something almost amused moved through his eyes, then vanished. "No, it is not." She pushed the blanket aside and stood carefully. "I did not know where I was sitting. I had been working since 5 in the morning, and the suppressants made me dizzy." Everett's gaze sharpened. What suppressants? Claire hesitated. Scent blockers. Why are you hiding your scent? Because some people hear the word omega and stop hearing everything else. The answer came out more bitterly than she intended. Everett was quiet for a moment. Who prescribed them? No one. I buy them at a pharmacy off Cedar Avenue. His jaw tightened. Those are not regulated for long-term use. Neither is being judged by every alpha who walks into a room. He studied her, not offended, which somehow made her more nervous. You crossed the throne wards, he said. I do not know what that means. It means no one should have been able to reach that seat without my permission. Claire folded her arms. I definitely did not have your permission. Exactly. He stepped closer, stopping several feet away. The wards recognized the royal line. They also recognize a true bonded equal. Her pulse stumbled. You think I am related to you? No. Then you think, she could not finish. Everett's wolf pressed against his control the instant fear entered her scent. Not aggression. Protection. He forced his voice to remain calm. I think the wards responded to you. I do not yet know why. Claire looked toward the door. Am I free to leave? The question struck harder than it should have. Yes. Everett answered without hesitation. No guard will stop you. She took one step, then paused. But the council will investigate you the moment you leave this room. And you will not. I already am. Claire turned back. At least you are honest. Everett reached into his coat and placed her employee badge on the table between them. The plastic card showed her name, photograph, and archive clearance level. Nothing else. Your official records begin when you were 8 years old. Her face went still. That is impossible. There is no birth pack, no hospital file, no blood registry. He watched the color drain from her cheeks. Someone erased your first 8 years. Claire stared at the badge as though it belonged to someone else. Then a slow heartbeat filled the silence. She looked around. Do you hear that? Everett did. It was not coming from either of them. It came from beneath the stone floor, deep under the east wing, answering the faint glow that had begun circling Claire's wrist. Stay behind me, he said. A hidden door in the wall clicked open. The hidden door opened only 3 inches before Everett caught it with one hand. Cold air spilled into the room, carrying the scent of dust, old paper, and something Claire could not name. It felt familiar anyway. That door was not there yesterday, she said. It has been there for more than a century. Everett looked at the silver line glowing around her wrist. It has never opened for me. Claire stared into the narrow darkness beyond the wall. That is supposed to make me feel better? No, he stepped through first. It is supposed to keep you cautious. A stone staircase descended beneath the east wing. Everett found a switch near the entrance, and dim amber lights came alive one by one along the walls. Claire followed, keeping a few feet between them. She knew she could leave. He had said so. But somewhere below, that slow heartbeat continued, matching the strange pull beneath her ribs. How many people know about this place? She asked. Graham. 2 former kings. Now you. That sounds like the beginning of a very bad explanation. Everett glanced back. Most royal explanations are. The stairs ended at a round chamber lined with sealed cabinets. Old pack emblems covered the walls, including several Claire did not recognize. At the center stood a black stone table marked with the same symbol that had appeared over Everett's heart. Claire stopped. I have seen that before. Where? I do not know. Her answer came too quickly. Everett noticed, but he did not challenge her. Instead, he moved toward a cabinet bearing the crest of Blackridge. Before he touched it, Claire's wrist burned with sudden heat. The cabinet unlocked by itself. Inside were dozens of leather folders, each stamped with dates going back nearly 200 years. Everett removed the newest one. The label read, Heartward and Lineage, restricted by royal decree. Claire gave a nervous laugh. That is subtle. He opened the folder. Most of the pages had been removed, but one photograph remained. A white woman with light brown hair stood beside the throne, her green eyes fixed on the camera. She wore a silver bracelet identical to the one Marcus had kept locked in his desk for as long as Claire could remember. Beneath the photograph was a handwritten name. Elena Hartwell. Claire felt the floor shift beneath her, though this time she was not dizzy. I know that bracelet. Everett's attention snapped to her. From where? My guardian has one like it. Marcus Whitmore? She nodded. Everett closed the folder slowly. Claire, Elena Hartwell disappeared 20 years ago during the Northern Pack uprising. I was born 25 years ago. Yes. The word landed between them. Footsteps sounded above. Graham appeared at the bottom of the stairs, breathing hard. "Your Majesty, we have a problem." Everett did not look away from Claire. "What happened?" The council pulled her employment file. By breakfast, half the Citadel knew an unregistered Omega had activated the throne wards. Claire's shoulders tightened. So much for keeping this quiet. Graham's expression turned grim. "It gets worse. Someone altered the records before we could secure them." He handed Everett a tablet. Claire's employee profile filled the screen, but her pack status had been replaced with one word in red letters. "Imposter." Everett's wolf rose so sharply that every light in the chamber flickered. Claire felt the pressure of his power, but none of it turned toward her. "Who authorized this?" he asked. Graham hesitated. "Counselor Pierce." Everett's face became unreadable. "Seal the archives. No one questions Claire without me present." Claire lifted her chin. "I can answer for myself." His gaze moved to her, and some of the coldness eased. "Then you will. But you will not stand alone while they decide what you are." Before Claire could respond, the photograph of Elena slid from the open folder and landed face down. On the back, hidden beneath decades of dust, someone had written a single sentence. "If my daughter survives, never let the throne find her." Claire read the sentence twice before the words began to make sense. "If my daughter survives, never let the throne find her." The photograph trembled between her fingers. "This could be about someone else," she said, but even she did not believe it. Everett stood across the stone table, silent in the way powerful men became silent when they were trying not to frighten anyone. Graham looked toward the staircase, giving them what little privacy the underground chamber allowed. Claire turned the photograph over again. Elena Hartwell had her eyes. Not similar eyes. The same pale green, with the same darker ring around the edge. Marcus knew. Claire whispered. He had to know. Everett's jaw tightened. "We will speak to him." "No. I will speak to him." "Claire, you said I could answer for myself." She met his gaze. "That includes asking my own questions." For a moment, the Alpha King and the Omega stood on opposite sides of the table, both unwilling to move. Then Everett gave one slow nod. "You lead the conversation. I make sure no one interrupts it." It was not permission. It was respect. She hated how much that mattered. Graham cleared his throat. "Counselor Pierce has called an emergency review in 40 minutes. He wants Claire brought before the pack representatives." "He can want whatever he likes," Everett said. "The review is not happening. He claims the throne wards may have been manipulated." Claire let out a short, humorless laugh. "Of course he does. An Omega does something impossible, so she must be cheating." The silver mark around her wrist brightened. Every locked cabinet in the chamber clicked open at once. Graham stepped back. Everett did not. Papers shifted inside the shelves as if moved by an unseen wind, and one thin journal slid across the floor until it stopped against Claire's boot. The cover bore no royal crest, only a faded drawing of two wolves standing beside a woman. Claire picked it up. The first page contained Elena's handwriting. "Heart wardens do not serve the crown. They keep the crown from destroying the person who wears it." Everett read over her shoulder, close enough that Claire felt the warmth of him without being touched. The strange heartbeat beneath the floor slowed. So did her own. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means the history I was taught was incomplete." His voice had gone colder, but the anger was not for her. "My father said the Heart Warden line tried to control the throne." Claire looked at Elena's warning. Maybe the throne was trying to control them. A bell sounded somewhere above, low and urgent. Graham checked his phone. "Pierce has started the review without us. He is telling the representatives Claire entered the Citadel under a false identity." Claire closed the journal. Fear pressed against her ribs, but beneath it was something stronger. She was tired of other people deciding what her missing past meant. "Then we should not keep them waiting." Everett studied her face. "You do not have to walk into that room." "Yes, I do." She tucked Elena's photograph inside the journal. "I spent my whole life staying small so people would leave me alone. It did not work." Everett held out his hand, not demanding, simply offering. Claire looked at it, then placed the journal in his palm instead. "Carry the evidence," she said. "I will carry myself." The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. "Fair enough." They climbed the hidden stairs together. When the wall opened into the east wing, Ruth Bellamy stood outside with two archive workers. Someone had written imposter across Claire's employee photograph and pinned it to the wall. Ruth tore it down before Claire could reach it. You are not facing them alone, the older Omega said. More footsteps gathered in the corridor. Housekeepers, clerks, drivers, and junior guards filled the hall, all wolves who had spent years being ignored by the council. Claire looked at Everett. He had ordered no one to come. They had chosen to. Then the doors to the royal hall opened, and Counselor Pierce's voice carried through the citadel. Bring in the false Omega. Claire stepped forward. The throne wards answered with a silver pulse so strong that every pack leader inside rose to his feet. The silver pulse rolled through the royal hall like a second heartbeat. Every banner along the walls lifted, though the windows were closed, and the 12 pack leaders rose as Claire crossed the threshold. Counselor Nolan Pierce stood beside the throne with one hand resting on the council table. Stop there, he ordered. Claire did, not because he had told her to, but because she wanted every wolf in the room to see that she was not running. Everett entered behind her carrying Elena's journal. Graham followed, while Ruth and the archive workers remained near the doors. Pierce looked past Claire to Everett. Your Majesty, this gathering concerns a possible breach of royal security. Then you should have waited for your king. Everett's voice was quiet. That made it worse. Pierce straightened. The council has authority when the throne itself may be compromised. Claire felt the old instinct to lower her eyes. She refused it. My name is Claire Whitmore. I have worked in this citadel for 6 years. I did not lie about who I am. Someone hid part of my life from me. Murmurs moved through the room. A broad-shouldered alpha from Red Creek leaned forward. And we are supposed to believe an unregistered Omega accidentally passed wards that have stopped trained warriors? I did not ask the wards to let me through, Claire said. I was exhausted, sick from scent suppressants, and trying to deliver your reports before midnight. A few leaders glanced at the files still stacked near the throne. Pierce lifted Claire's altered employee record. Her history begins at 8 years old. No birth pack, no blood classification, no family record. That is not an innocent mistake. No, Claire said. It is a secret. There is a difference. Everett placed Elena's journal on the table. This was sealed beneath the east wing by royal decree. It opened for Claire. Pierce did not touch it. A convenient discovery. Everett's wolf stirred, and the room seemed to shrink around his anger. Claire felt the pressure through the half-formed bond, but beneath it came something else. Pain. Sharp, sudden, buried behind his ribs. He gripped the edge of the table. No one else seemed to notice. Claire did. Everett. His gaze found hers. For 1 second, the Alpha King looked less like a ruler and more like a man who had been awake for years. The mark on Claire's wrist warmed. She stepped toward him before fear could stop her and laid 2 fingers against the back of his hand. The effect was immediate. His shoulders loosened. His breathing steadied. The restless force pressing against the room disappeared. Every wolf in the hall felt it. Pierce's expression changed first. Take your hand off him. Claire turned slowly. Why? Because you are influencing the king. She is helping me, Everett said. The words silenced the room. Claire removed her hand anyway. She wanted the choice to be hers. Everett understood. His eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. Then he faced the leaders. The review is over. Pierce laughed once. You cannot dismiss 12 packs because an Omega calmed your wolf. I am dismissing a hearing built on altered evidence. Everett lifted Claire's employee record. Someone changed this file after Graham secured the original. Until I learn who did it. No accusation made here has standing. A female alpha from Pine Hollow looked at Claire's wrist. What are you? Claire thought of Elena's warning, Marcus's silence, and the years she had spent apologizing for taking up space. I do not know yet, she said, but I am not an imposter. The throne answered with another silver pulse. This time, a hidden symbol appeared across its base, matching the mark around Claire's wrist. Graham stared at it. That is not a blood seal. Pierce went pale. Everett stepped down from the council platform and stood beside Claire. What is it? Graham looked from the throne to Elena's journal. An invitation. Before anyone could speak, the great doors behind the throne unlocked by themselves, opening onto a snow-covered forest no map of Blackridge had ever shown. Cold air swept through the royal hall, carrying pine, snow, and the clean scent of a place untouched by roads or cities. Beyond the open doors stood a forest under a pale morning sky, even though Blackridge Citadel was surrounded by stone courtyards and downtown streets. Claire stared through the doorway. That was not there yesterday. Graham gave her a dry look. That wall was not a door yesterday. Counselor Pierce recovered before anyone else. Seal it. Everett stepped between him and the opening. No, Your Majesty, we do not know where it leads. That is why I am going through it. Pierce's eyes moved to Claire. And she stays here. Everett's wolf answered with a low pressure that made the candles flicker. Claire touched his sleeve before the room could react. I can speak for myself. Everett looked down at her hand, then at her face. The anger inside him settled almost at once. Claire noticed. So did everyone else. I am going, she said. The symbol appeared for me. It may be dangerous, Everett replied. So is standing in a room where half the council thinks I am a threat. A few pack leaders looked away. Everett considered her for one long second. Stay within 10 feet of me. That sounds like an order. It is a request made by a man who has had a difficult morning. Claire almost smiled. 10 feet. They crossed the threshold together. Graham followed, while Pierce and the remaining leaders stayed behind. The moment Claire stepped into the snow, the doors shut with a heavy sound. The citadel vanished. There was only forest in every direction. Everett turned immediately. No stone wall. No doorway. Nothing. That is not ideal, Claire said. Graham checked his phone. No signal. No compass reading either. Everett scanned the trees. The wards brought us here for a reason. Claire pulled his coat tighter around herself. He had insisted she wear it before leaving the hall. It smelled faintly of cedar and winter air, and she hated how safe that made her feel. A narrow path appeared between the pines. Silver light moved beneath the snow like a line being drawn. They followed it for nearly a mile until the trees opened around a frozen lake. On the far shore stood a small cabin with smoke rising from the chimney. Someone lives here? Claire asked. No one is supposed to live inside Royal Ward space, Everett said. The cabin door opened. An elderly woman stepped onto the porch, wrapped in a red wool shawl. Her white hair moved in the wind, but she did not seem surprised to see them. You took your time, she called. Graham reached for the radio that no longer worked. Everett moved in front of Claire. Who are you? The woman looked past him. Not the one you came to find. Her gaze settled on Claire's wrist. But I knew your mother. Claire stopped breathing. Everett glanced back at her, and the strange bond between them tightened with her fear. The woman descended the porch steps slowly. Elena told me the throne would call her daughter one day. Claire's voice barely worked. Is she alive? The woman's expression softened with something that looked like regret. She was when they took her beneath Blackridge. Everett went completely still. Who took her? The same council that now calls her child an imposter. A sharp crack traveled across the frozen lake. Silver lines spread beneath the ice, forming the Heart Warden symbol. Claire felt a pulse under her skin. Then another. Across from her, Everett pressed one hand to his chest. The bond, he said quietly. It is changing. Claire looked down. A thin silver thread of light stretched from the mark on her wrist to the symbol over his heart. The woman on the shore watched them with worried eyes. Do not let it complete here, she warned. Not until you learn what his father promised the night your mother disappeared. The silver thread between Claire and Everett tightened until both of them stepped back. It did not break. It only dimmed, hanging between them like moonlight caught in glass. What promise? Claire asked. The elderly woman looked toward the cabin. Not out here. Everett did not move. Give me your name first. Miriam Cole. She pulled the red shawl tighter around her shoulders. I was Elena Hartwell's physician and later her friend. That was enough to make the council erase me too. Graham scanned the tree line before following them inside. The cabin was warm and plain, with canned soup stacked beside the stove, an old radio on the counter, and photographs covering one wall. Claire found Elena immediately. In one picture, her mother stood beside Miriam near the frozen lake, laughing with her boots buried in 6 inches of snow. She looked young. Free. Claire touched the edge of the frame. She looks happy. She was, Miriam said, before the throne learned what she could do. Everett stood near the door, keeping several feet between himself and Claire. The bond carried enough of his tension for her to feel it anyway. Miriam opened a metal lockbox and removed a sealed envelope. The royal crest on the front belonged to Everett's father, King Jonathan Kane. Elena came to Blackridge because the northern packs were close to open conflict, Miriam explained. Her presence calmed the royal wards and gave Jonathan the strength to negotiate. The council called it service. Elena called it a cage. Claire turned toward Everett. Did your father force a bond with her? No, Miriam said. He was not her mate. But he allowed the council to use her power without telling the Pax what it cost. Everett's face hardened. What did it cost? Every time she stabilized the throne, it weakened her own wolf. Silence filled the cabin. Claire looked at the envelope in Miriam's hands. And the promise? Miriam gave it to her. Claire broke the seal. The letter inside was short, written in dark ink. If Elena's daughter carries the Heartwarden mark, she must be found before the next royal bond forms. She will belong to the throne, whether she accepts that duty or not. The signature at the bottom was Jonathan Kane's. Claire read it again, hoping the words would change. They did not. Everett crossed the room, but she stepped away before he could reach her. The silver thread between them flickered. Claire, he said, you knew your father was connected to this. I knew he signed orders during the uprising. I did not know about that letter. But you knew enough to stay quiet. His silence answered first. Claire folded the page carefully because tearing it would not erase what it said. You told me no one would choose for me. I meant it. Then why did you not tell me your family already tried? Everett's wolf pressed against the bond, not angry, but ashamed. Claire felt it so clearly that it almost hurt more. Graham looked away. Miriam's expression softened, but she did not interfere. Everett removed the royal signet ring from his hand and placed it on the table. Because every answer made the throne look worse, and I was afraid you would leave before I could understand how to protect you. Claire stared at him. You were afraid of losing me before you even asked whether I wanted to stay. Yes. The honesty landed hard. Outside, the frozen lake cracked again. The cabin windows flashed silver. Miriam moved to the door. The ward is sending you back. Claire slipped the letter into her coat. Good. Everett picked up his ring, but did not put it on. When we return, I will open every sealed record from my father's reign. That should have happened before I found out from a stranger in the woods. The doorway to the royal hall appeared between the trees, glowing beyond the porch. Claire walked toward it without waiting. Just before she crossed, Miriam caught her arm gently. Your mother left one more message. Claire turned. Miriam leaned closer. She said Marcus saved your life, but he was never supposed to keep the truth forever. On the other side of the doorway, Marcus Whitmore stood in the royal hall, surrounded by guards. When he saw Claire, his face collapsed with relief and guilt. She held up Jonathan Kane's letter. Tell me everything, she said. Marcus lowered his eyes. Your mother is alive. Claire felt the royal hall disappear around her. Marcus stood 20 feet away beneath the Blackridge banners, his gray hair damp from the snow and his hands held where the guards could see them. He had raised her, packed her school lunches, taught her how to change a tire, and sat beside her through every fever. Now he looked like a stranger wearing the face of the only father she had ever known. Where is she? Claire asked. Marcus glanced at Everett, then back at her. Beneath the old north wing. Graham went still. There is nothing beneath the north wing except abandoned service tunnels. That is what the council wanted everyone to believe. Marcus swallowed. Elena has been kept inside a containment ward for 20 years. Everett stepped forward. By whose authority? Your father signed the first order. Pierce renewed it after Jonathan died. The room seemed to cool. Everett's wolf pushed against his control, and the silver thread between him and Claire flashed once. She felt his anger, but she also felt the moment he forced it down because this was her pain, not his. You knew she was alive, Claire said. Marcus closed his eyes. Yes. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I asked what my mother looked like, you knew. I knew where they had taken her. I did not know whether she was still herself. Claire stared at him. That is not an answer. I was trying to keep you alive. His voice broke. The council searched for you for years. I changed your name, erased the blood records, moved us through 4 states, and taught you to hide your scent. If they had found you, they would have put you beside her. So you decided I did not deserve the truth? I decided a living child could hate me later. The words struck with more force than an excuse should have. Claire wanted to stay angry. She was angry, but underneath it, she saw the fear that had shaped every rule Marcus had ever given her. Never register with a pack. Never let a healer test your blood. Never trust anyone who asks about your mark. His betrayal had grown from love, but it was still betrayal. You should have told me when I was old enough to choose, she said. Marcus lowered his head. Yes. Everett turned to the guards. Release him. Pierce's voice came from the council platform. You do not have the authority to dismiss a royal security arrest during an active emergency. Everyone looked up. Pierce stood beside Serena Ashford and 6 council representatives. Serena wore a dark blue dress, and the expression of someone who had just realized the room was more dangerous than the invitation suggested. Pierce continued. Claire Whitmore is an unregistered heart warden with a developing bond to the crown. Until the council determines whether she is stable, she will remain inside Blackridge. Claire felt Everett's power rise. This time she did not touch him. She faced Pierce herself. You mean imprisoned? Protected. That is the word people use when they want a cage to sound kind. A few wolves near the doors murmured in agreement. Pierce ignored them. The northern packs are already questioning King Everett's judgment. If this bond continues without council oversight, the alliance could fracture. Serena looked at Everett. Is the bond real? Everett did not hesitate. Something is forming. The answer traveled through the hall like a match dropped on dry grass. Pierce seized the moment. Then the king must still fulfill his duty. The council recommends a formal alliance with Silverpine, while Claire is examined. Claire turned toward Everett. She waited for him to reject it. Instead, he looked at the 12-pack banners, then at Graham, calculating the weight of a kingdom in the space of one breath. I will consider every option that prevents war, he said. The silver thread between them went cold. Claire heard the promise he had made in the cabin, but now it sounded hollow. No one will choose for you. Pierce smiled. Serena looked uncomfortable. Marcus whispered Claire's name, but she was already stepping away. Everett followed her into the corridor. Claire, listen to me. She stopped without turning. Are you keeping me here while you consider marrying someone else? I am trying to keep 12 packs from turning on each other. That was not my question. Silence. Claire nodded once, more hurt by the pause than any answer. She took off his coat and laid it over the back of a chair. Then protect your throne. Everett reached for her, but stopped before touching her. Where will you go? Claire looked at the silver mark fading around her wrist. Somewhere no one gets to call my cage protection. Before dawn, she left Blackridge through an archive service tunnel only 3 people knew existed. By the time Everett found her empty room, the mate bond had stretched into a thin, painful line pointing north. Everett knew Claire was gone before Graham opened the door. The silence inside her room felt wrong. Her employee badge lay on the desk beside Elena's journal, but the coat she had worn into the hidden forest was missing. On the bed sat a folded note with only 6 words. I need the truth without permission. Everett read it twice. Then the bond pulled north so sharply that his wolf surged beneath his skin. The windows rattled. A glass of water cracked across the desk. Graham stopped in the doorway. The council is gathering downstairs. Let them. Pierce is calling this proof that Claire is unstable. Everett turned, and the pressure in the room forced even his beta to brace himself. She left because I failed to give her a reason to stay. Graham held his gaze. Then fix that. But do it as Everett, not as the king. 30 minutes later, Everett entered the council chamber without his crown. Pierce stood beneath the 12-pack banners, already speaking about emergency succession rules. Serena sat near the Silverpine delegation, her expression guarded. Your Majesty, Pierce said, we must address the Omega's disappearance. Her name is Claire. Everett placed Jonathan Kane's letter on the table. And before this council discusses her choices, we will discuss ours. Pierce's mouth tightened. This is not the time. It is 20 years past time. Everett looked at the pack leaders. My father authorized Elena Hartwell's confinement. This council continued it. I knew pieces of that history and hid them from Claire. The room fell quiet. Serena rose slowly. You are admitting royal misconduct in open session. I am admitting my own. Everett's voice remained steady, though the bond burned beneath his ribs. I told Claire she would have a choice, then asked her to trust me while I considered a political arrangement that treated her like a problem to manage. Pierce stepped forward. You were protecting the alliance. No, I was protecting my image as a king who could hold everything together. Everett removed the royal signet ring and set it beside the letter. The session is suspended. You cannot abandon 12 packs to chase one Omega. The room darkened as Everett's wolf rose again, but he did not shout. Watch me. Serena spoke before Pierce could answer. I never agreed to become your political solution. She turned toward her delegation. Silverpine will not support a forced alliance. Pierce stared at her. Your father already pledged his vote. My father does not choose my mate. The words cut through the room. Everett gave her a brief nod, then walked away from the throne. Outside, snow had begun falling over Blackridge. Graham met him at the garage with keys to an old four-wheel drive truck. The bond points toward the northern settlement, he said. Marcus had a cabin near the Wyoming line. Everett took the keys. Keep Pierce away from the north wing. And if he invokes emergency authority, release every sealed record from my father's reign to the pack leaders. Graham's eyebrows lifted. All of them. Every page. Everett drove for 3 hours through mountain roads while the bond weakened mile by mile. Claire sat in Marcus's abandoned cabin nearly 200 miles north, wrapped in a blanket beside a cold fireplace. She had found boxes of Elena's letters hidden beneath the floorboards. Most were never sent. One contained a hand-drawn map of tunnels beneath Blackridge and a warning written in red ink. Pierce cannot control the throne without both heart wardens. If he finds Claire, he will use me to make her surrender. Claire heard tires on gravel and reached for the iron poker beside the fireplace. A vehicle stopped outside. The front door opened before she could call out. But it was not Everett. Counselor Pierce stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. 2 royal guards stood behind him. You made this difficult, he said. Claire tightened her grip on the poker. You followed me. No, Pierce looked toward the silver mark burning around her wrist. The throne did. Far down the mountain road, Everett felt Claire's fear strike through the bond. His wolf went completely still. Then a second presence touched the connection, cold and familiar. Pierce. Everett pressed harder on the gas as the first royal ward closed across the highway ahead. Claire never raised the iron poker. She simply held it between herself and the 3 people blocking the cabin door. Counselor Nolan Pierce looked almost relaxed, as though he had arrived for a scheduled meeting instead of tracking her across 2 states. Snow melted from his coat onto the wooden floor. You should not have run, he said. Claire kept her voice steady. I left because no one was listening. The kingdom is listening now. Pierce glanced toward the open letters scattered across the table. Unfortunately, you have found documents that belong to the crown. They belong to my mother first. One of the guards stepped forward, but Pierce lifted a hand. There is no need for intimidation. Claire almost laughed. You brought armed guards into a mountain cabin. For protection. There is that word again. Pierce sighed. Miss Whitmore, I understand why you are frightened. Do not tell me how I feel. Very well. His tone remained calm. Then allow me to tell you what will happen if you refuse to return. The royal wards are failing. Every hour your bond with the king remains unfinished, the barriers protecting the 12 packs grow weaker. Claire searched his face for any sign of honesty. Miriam said the heart wardens protected the throne. She never said they belonged to it. Miriam remembers only half the story. Pierce slowly removed a leather folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. Read this. Claire did not move. Open it yourself. Pierce nodded to one of the guards, who placed the folder within her reach before stepping back. Inside were engineering reports, old maps, and photographs of damaged wardstones along the northern border. Several pages carried Everett's official seal. The final page contained a recent assessment signed by Graham Vale. Estimated structural failure within 30 days if the heart warden line remains inactive. Claire felt her stomach tighten. Is this real? Every word. Pierce folded his hands. King Everett has been trying to solve this crisis without forcing your involvement. He failed because there is no alternative. Claire looked up sharply. There is always an alternative. Then find one before innocent families lose the protection those wards provide. His words settled into the room like heavy snow. Before Claire could answer, tires crunched outside. One guard turned toward the window. Everett's truck slid to a stop beside the cabin. He was out before the engine fully died. The front door opened again, and Everett walked inside alone, leaving Graham outside with the vehicle. His gray eyes went immediately to Claire. Are you all right? I am. She lowered the poker but did not step closer. Everett noticed. The distance hurt more than he expected. Pierce smiled faintly. Perfect timing, Your Majesty. I was explaining reality. Everett looked at the folder on the table. With selected evidence. With necessary evidence. Everett reached into his coat and removed another stack of documents. Then everyone should have the complete record. He handed the papers to Claire instead of addressing the counselor. These were released to every pack leader an hour ago. Claire read the first page. It was Jonathan Kane's private correspondence. Halfway down the letter, one sentence stood out. The council insists the Heart Warden line must remain under permanent supervision. I believe they are creating a prison and calling it tradition. Claire looked up slowly. Everett met her eyes without looking away. My father changed his mind, he said quietly. He tried to end the confinement before he died. Pierce's calm expression cracked for the first time. That letter was sealed. Not anymore, Everett replied. Neither are the rest. A phone vibrated in one guard's pocket. He checked the screen, then looked at Pierce with open disbelief. Sir, every pack leader has the files. Another phone rang. Then another. Messages flooded in from Blackridge, Silverpine, Red Creek, and the remaining packs. Serena Ashford appeared on the cabin television through an emergency news broadcast from the Royal Hall. Standing before reporters and pack representatives, she spoke with absolute certainty. The council concealed the truth about Elena Hartwell for 20 years. Effective immediately, Silverpine withdraws its support from Councillor Pierce's emergency authority. Pierce stared at the screen in silence. Claire slowly closed the folder and looked from Everett to the councillor. You told me there was no other choice. Everett's voice remained calm. There never was a choice that required taking yours away. Before Pierce could respond, the silver mark around Claire's wrist flared brighter than ever before. The cabin trembled gently, and somewhere deep beneath Blackridge, the ancient throne answered with a low, resonant pulse that every alpha across the 12 packs could feel. The pulse beneath Blackridge reached the cabin a second time, deeper and stronger, and every phone in the room lost its signal at once. Claire pressed one hand over the mark on her wrist. The silver light no longer looked gentle. It moved beneath her skin like a warning. Everett took one step toward her, then stopped when she looked up. Do not, she said. He froze. Pierce watched them both with a new kind of fear. The throne is calling her back. The throne does not get to call anyone, Everett replied. Not anymore. Claire looked at the letters spread across the table. Her mother's handwriting. Jonathan Kane's regret. Marcus's years of silence. Everett's half-truths. Everyone had claimed they were protecting her, and every one of them had decided what she could bear without asking. You knew the wards were failing, she said to Everett. Yes. You knew I might be able to save them. Yes. Her voice shook despite her effort to control it. And you still did not tell me everything. Everett did not defend himself. No, Pierce gave a quiet, satisfied breath. At least the king admits he used you. Everett turned on him, but Claire raised her hand. This is not about him right now. The bond between her and Everett tightened with pain. She felt his regret as clearly as her own heartbeat, but regret did not rebuild trust. Why did you come after me? She asked. Everett answered without hesitation. Because you were afraid. That is not enough. Because I was wrong. His voice lowered. I kept thinking I could protect you from the truth until I had a solution. All I did was become another man deciding your life in a closed room. Claire swallowed. And if saving the packs requires me to give up my freedom, then I lose the throne before you lose yourself. Pierce stepped forward. You cannot promise that. Millions of wolves depend on those wards. Then the crown will find another way. There is no other way. A soft voice came from the old radio on the counter. Static crackled. Then a woman whispered Claire's name. Everyone turned. Claire moved closer, her breath catching when the voice came again. Claire, do not come below Blackridge alone. The radio had no power. Its cord hung loose behind the cabinet. Pierce went pale. Everett stared at it. Elena, Claire whispered. The silver mark flared, and an image appeared in the dark television screen. A woman sat inside a stone chamber beneath the citadel, older than the photographs, but unmistakable. Elena Hartwell looked directly at Claire as if the miles between them did not exist. They are moving the containment ward, Elena said. Pierce prepared this before you were born. Claire turned slowly. Pierce backed toward the door. That projection is not reliable. Elena's voice sharpened. He never wanted the Heart Wardens to protect the throne. He wanted the throne to answer to the council. The cabin door locked by itself. The two guards stepped away from Pierce. One removed his royal insignia and placed it on the table. Sir, he said quietly, were we sent here to protect her or capture her? Pierce did not answer. That was answer enough. Claire looked back at the screen. Mom, how do I free you? Elena's expression broke with 20 years of grief. You cannot. Not without completing the bond. Everett's face went still. Claire felt the truth through the silver thread before Elena spoke again. And once it is complete, the throne can claim you both. Claire turned to Everett. Did you know that? His silence lasted 1 second too long. The thread between them snapped dark. Claire felt the bond go silent, and the emptiness hurt worse than the pull ever had. Everett looked at her as if he had just watched a door close between them. I knew the throne could influence a completed bond, he said. I did not know it could claim both of us. Claire held his gaze. You still knew there was a risk. Yes. Pierce seized the silence. And now you understand why the council must act. The cabin lights flickered as the distant throne pulsed again. Everett turned toward him. You are finished speaking for her. You are willing to let the wards collapse because your mate is angry with you. She is not my possession. Everett removed the royal signet ring and set it on the table. And she is right. Claire stared at the ring. What are you doing? Choosing before the throne chooses for me. He looked at the 2 guards. Contact every pack leader. Tell them to gather in the royal hall. Open the emergency broadcast to every territory. Pierce's face tightened. You cannot hold a public hearing without the council. I am not holding a hearing. Everett's voice stayed calm. I am ending one. The Heartwarden mark on Claire's wrist flashed, and the cabin vanished in silver light. A second later, they stood inside the royal hall at Blackridge. Snow still clung to Everett's coat. Claire still held Elena's letter. Around them, the 12 pack leaders appeared one by one through the throne wards, confused and alarmed. Serena stood near the silver pine banner with Graham and Marcus. The great screens above the hall came alive, broadcasting to every pack center across the alliance. Pierce stepped toward the council platform. This is an unlawful seizure of authority. Serena blocked his path. No. This is what accountability looks like. Everett climbed the steps, but did not sit on the throne. Instead, he placed his crown beside the seat. For 20 years, this council imprisoned Elena Hartwell and concealed the truth about the Heartwarden line. My father began that injustice. I continued its silence. Murmurs swept through the hall. Claire felt every eye turn toward her, but this time she did not shrink. Everett faced the gathered packs. The throne demands a completed bond to restore the wards. I refuse to complete it under pressure, and I refuse to let Claire be sacrificed for my reign. Pierce laughed bitterly. Then you condemn the alliance. No, Claire said. Her voice carried farther than she expected. She walked to the foot of the throne. The council built this system around fear. Fear of weak kings. Fear of powerful omegas. Fear that people given a choice might say no. The silver mark brightened. I am saying no to the old law. The throne answered with a deep vibration. Cracks of silver light spread across its base. Pierce raised his voice. You cannot rewrite royal magic with a speech. Claire looked at him. Maybe not. Then she turned to Everett. Would you give up the crown if I never chose the bond? Everett stepped down until they stood at the same level. Yes. Even if the packs blamed you? Yes. Even if I walked away? His expression broke, but his answer did not. Yes. Claire placed her hand over the crown. Everett placed his beside hers, leaving space between their fingers. No claim. No command. The throne shook once, then split along the hidden Heartwarden symbol. A wave of silver light swept through the hall, not cold this time, but warm. Elena's image appeared above the throne, free of the stone chamber. The old bond is broken, she said. The wards will answer only to willing hearts. Every screen across the 12 packs showed Pierce's face as the council records opened behind him. He did not resist when the royal guards removed his insignia. Claire looked at Everett. The silver thread between them returned, faint but steady, waiting instead of pulling. This does not fix everything, she said. I know. You will have to earn my trust. I know. She nodded toward the empty throne. Then stand beside me while we bring my mother home. Everett did not reach for her hand. He simply moved to her side. Beneath Blackridge, 20 years of locked doors began to open. The last of the old locks beneath Blackridge opened with a quiet sound that almost no one heard. There was no explosion, no celebration, only the steady echo of doors that had remained closed for far too many years finally choosing to move. Claire walked through the underground corridor beside Everett, Marcus, Graham, Serena, and the royal guards. No one spoke. Some moments deserved silence more than words. At the end of the stone passage, a single chamber stood open. Elena Hartwell stepped into the light slowly. blinking as though she had forgotten what daylight looked like. Claire stopped a few feet away. 20 years of questions disappeared. There was only one left. Can I hug you? Elena smiled through tears. You never had to ask. Claire crossed the distance between them. Neither woman said anything for a long time. They simply stood together while the weight of lost birthdays, missed holidays, and ordinary mornings settled into something gentler. Everett remained outside the doorway. This reunion belonged to them. Marcus quietly wiped his eyes. I promised her I would keep you alive, he said. I never imagined I would live long enough to see this day. Claire looked back at him. You made mistakes. Marcus nodded. I know. But you also gave me a childhood instead of a prison. She walked over and embraced him too. Thank you. Above them, Blackridge had already begun changing. Within days, every sealed council record became public. The 12 packs voted to dissolve the old council structure and replace it with representatives chosen by every rank, including omegas, betas, and younger wolves who had never before been given a voice. Serena Ashford returned to Silverpine as its alpha and refused every political marriage proposal placed before her. An alliance built without choice is only another cage, she told her own pack, and for the first time, no one argued. Councillor Pierce was stripped of his authority and sent away from Blackridge. He left without chains, without applause, and without the power he had spent a lifetime protecting. It was not revenge. It was consequence. Everett appeared before every pack 1 week later without wearing his crown. A king who fears the truth is not strong enough to lead, he said. If you choose someone else, I will accept it. The vote lasted until sunset. When the final count was announced, the packs chose him again, not because he had never failed, but because he had admitted that he had. The crown returned to him only after new laws were signed protecting every wolf from forced bonds, hidden imprisonment, and decisions made without consent. Claire refused the title of Luna that day. Reporters, elders, and even children asked why. Her answer never changed. Titles can wait. Trust cannot. Everett never argued. He visited the archives where Claire returned to work, carrying his own files when he needed records instead of sending assistants. Sometimes they shared coffee before sunrise. Sometimes they disagreed. Sometimes they spent an entire afternoon saying almost nothing. The bond between them remained quiet, never pulling, never demanding, simply waiting for whatever future they freely chose. Months later, on the first snowfall of winter, Claire finished organizing the final box from Elena's recovered collection. She climbed the familiar steps to the royal hall, meaning only to deliver one forgotten journal before going home. The room was empty. The throne stood beneath the morning light, no longer surrounded by fear or impossible rules. She smiled to herself, sat down for just a minute, and closed her eyes. Everett entered a few minutes later with Graham and 2 waiting ambassadors. Graham whispered, "Should I wake her? The meeting starts in 5 minutes." Everett looked at Claire sleeping peacefully beneath the same royal crest that had once terrified her. He remembered the frightened young woman who had apologized for existing, and the courageous woman who had taught an entire kingdom that love without choice was never love at all. He smiled. "No," he said softly. "She has earned her rest." Claire opened one eye and laughed. "I heard that." Everett laughed with her. The ambassadors laughed too. For the first time in generations, the sound of laughter echoed through the royal hall louder than the sound of fear. And perhaps that was the greatest change of all. Because kingdoms do not become stronger when they find someone willing to carry every burden alone. They become stronger when the most powerful person in the room finally learns to make space for someone else to sit beside them.